Good afternoon. Thanks for coming, everyone. Quorum was really important today, so I appreciate everyone making the effort to come, and we now have what appears to be a quorum. So that's awesome. I want to welcome everyone, and I would like to start with our clerk performing our roll call to confirm the quorum.
Good afternoon. Although you don't count to quorum, but the chair, Jory Lines.
Yes, here.
City of Carlsbad is absent. City of Chula Vista, Todd Phillips.
Here.
City of Coronado, Jesse Brown.
Here.
County of San Diego, Tara Lieberman.
Here.
Cities of Del Mar and El Cajon are absent. City of Encinitas, Crystal Najira.
Here.
City of Escondido, Veronica Morones.
Here.
City of Imperial Beach, Megan Openshaw.
Here.
Cities of La Mesa, Lemon Grove, and National City are absent. City of Oceanside, Sergio Madera.
Here.
Cities of Poway and San Diego are absent. City of San Marcos, Saima Kureshi.
Here.
City of Santee, Michael Coyne.
Present.
City of Solana Beach, Joseph Lim.
Here.
City of Vista is absent. Air Pollution Control District, Mike Watt.
Here.
Caltrans is absent. San Diego Local Agency Formation Commission, Priscilla Mumpower. NCTD, Lillian Dougherty.
Here.
MTS is absent. Airport Authority, Ralph Redman.
Here.
And the remaining advisory members are absent, and that confirms a quorum and concludes roll call.
Thank you very much. Good. What I want to start with today is to introduce our new staff liaison with SANDAG. Her name is Sarah Toma, and she's sitting right next to me to my left. And I'd like to allow Sarah to give you a few words of introduction.
Thank you, Chair Lins, and good afternoon. My name is Sarah Toma. I'm the new Senior Regional Planner here with SANDAG within the Sustainable Communities Division. While I'm new to SANDAG, I am not new to planning. I have 10 years of experience. I'm originally from San Diego. I've worked for the City of San Diego, the City of Temecula, and the City of San Clemente. So I'm very excited to kind of bring my local jurisdiction experience into this regional role, and also super excited to be your new liaison. Thank you.
All right, welcome, Sarah. Just a quick reminder for the working group, if as far as how you engage and how you show that you have a question, just raise your hand and you'll be called on in an order that hopefully generally represents when you've raised your hand. So that's our process there. Tessa, can you provide a quick reminder of how the public comment will work?
Thank you, Chair. If you are in person here, please complete and submit a speaker slip that can be found in the back of the room. If you are online virtually, please just raise your hand at the time that the item is called for presentation. We will take in-person commenters first and then virtual commenters. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to start next then by asking the working group if you have any questions or comments before we begin our agenda items. Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. This is Mike Watt with the County of San Diego Air Pollution Control District. Just want to make a quick announcement. We are working on a strategic planning document for our agency. We'll be having some public workshops over the course of the next several weeks, and we'll be working on a kind of survey to get input from members of this group, various jurisdictions around the county. So just wanted to give you all a heads up to look for that in the coming weeks. Really value the input that we receive from this group and see how we can coordinate on things related to air quality and cleaning the air going forward. So just wanted to give you a heads up on that. And I'll maybe an update at the next meeting when we're a little further along in the process.
Look forward to that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? All right, we'll jump to our agenda item number 1, which is our public comment. And this, as a reminder, is public comment associated with non-agenda items. And clerk, do we have any public comment?
There are no non-agenda public comments.
Okay, thank you. This is also an opportunity, according to my notes. So I think I'm passing this to Sarah to do SANDAG staff so I'll change that. I'm introducing then SANDAG staff, Yushi Chen and Carrie Simmons, who will make a few announcements before we get started. I hope I did that in the right order.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Yushi Chen, and I'm a regional planner on the climate team. I'm here today to introduce you to the Regional Climate Action Planning Grant that we got from the US EPA. So on September 8th, the Board of Directors accepted a $1 million 4-year planning grant, which will require us to do 2 regionally focused climate plans. First of them is to develop a priority climate action plan, and that focuses on near-term greenhouse gas reduction measures. Some of those can be zero-emission vehicles, promoting increased use of transit, or retrofitting energy-efficient buildings. This will build on your locally adopted climate action plans, sustainability plans, and on our regional plan. Just yesterday, EPA released a $4.6 billion notice of funding to implement what would be in those priority climate action plans. This grant will also enable SANDAG to develop a regional climate action plan that focuses on near-term and long-term climate actions to reduce greenhouse gas reduction. Through this grant, we're working with your climate and sustainability staff, some of those I see in the room, to capture the priorities from your jurisdictions. We will also be coordinating with local community groups, tribal nations, and the Air District. We'll be coming back to this working group later this year when we have those draft measures and to expand on the EPA's funding opportunity. We'll give Carrie the information on the new notice of funding opportunity released yesterday for her to share with all of you. Thank you.
Okay, just a couple quick things from me. First, congratulations to City of La Mesa and the City of Oceanside who've received substantial compliance on their housing elements. Super exciting and great for our region to have that. So congratulations. My other update is that I want to make everyone aware of an upcoming housing technical assistance training that we're holding on objective design standards. It's been moved from October 3rd to October 17th from 12 to 2. It'll be in SANDAG offices, but also hybrid online. So if you were not aware of that or want to sign up for it, I'll include it in a follow-up email, but there's also been plenty of correspondence going around about it. You'll need a link to sign up. And then my other update is that you all are likely aware, but through our housing acceleration program, we offer free housing technical assistance to jurisdictions. We had a deadline of September 30th to get any requests into us, but that deadline's been extended to October 15th. So, there's still plenty of resources available. So we'd love to help your jurisdiction. So you can reach out to me, and also more information will be in the follow-up email. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Yushi and Carrie, for those updates. So we'll go on to item number 2, which is approval of meeting minutes. And do we have a motion? And let me just say, if you move or you second, could you just say your last name so I can't read everyone's name tags? A motion or any discussion? Nahara, thank you. Second, Phillips, thank you. So how do we want to do the raise your hands? Okay, all those in favor, raise your hand. Any opposed? Any abstain? Motion carries. Thank you. So item number 3, Service Bureau Future Operations.
Excuse me, Chairwoman. We do not have any public comments on item 2 as well.
Thank you. Item 3, Service Bureau Future Operations. I'd like to introduce Dr. Cindy Burke, SANDAG Senior Director of Data Sciences, who will present an update on future Service Bureau operations.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for coming down. So as you know, Service Bureau has been an option that we've used here at SANDAG since 2005. And over the years, it's really just become mainly a transportation modeling focused effort. And we went to the executive committee on September 8th to let them know that in FY22, we actually had we were in the red for the the third time in for Service Bureau, and we expect that we're also going to have be in the red again in FY23. And this is a result of a number of different factors. As you know, we had to stop Service Bureau projects when we started working on the 2021 Regional Plan Amendment. And so that put projects on hold from April of 2022. July of 2022 until April of 2023, this most recent year. And it's really come to our attention that the Service Bureau model is not sustainable in the long term because, as you know, the transportation model that we use for it is not for the small level geographies that we use. We also are the only MPO in the state of California that does Service Bureau projects. And so what we talked to the executive committee about, and I want to let you all know that we're very aware that you have needs for general plan projects and such. Right now, we have 5 projects for jurisdictions in San Diego County that are going to be completed by the time we reach spring of 2024, when we really have to get into the regional plan modeling. And so what our executive committee agreed to is that we'll be focusing on that. We've started telling private developers that we're unable to do those runs for them that previously would have been small Service Bureau projects because it's really keeping us from working on our regional plan efforts. And starting in around May of 2024 until our regional plan, the 2025 regional plan is completed, we are going to be focusing on those regional projects. So what does this mean for your jurisdictions? We are actually transitioning right now to an easier server that our consultants, private consultants can work on more easily. And we're investigating the possibility of having some type of on-call that could be put into place that your jurisdictions could potentially use. And we want to acknowledge the fact that you don't want to be taken advantage of by consultants in terms of being, price gouged. Sorry, consultants who might be listening to this meeting, not that you would do that, but also have the SANDAG stamp of approval, because obviously for a lot of the work that you're doing, there could be community members who are questioning some of the analysis that are being done. The other issue we're going to be working closely with your jurisdictions on is we're currently working on ABM3, which is a new version of our transportation model. And ABM2 Plus is what has been used for our Service Bureau projects. But once that new plan is put into place, all those changes to the small land use geographies are going to need to be updated. And that cost about $300,000 that we've recouped through the Service Bureau project. So we're going to have to figure out how do we work with your jurisdictions if there's some model for you all wanting to make those changes up front. So I just wanted to share with you the update of where we were with the Service Bureau projects, that anything that we can complete by May, we want to work with your jurisdictions to get that done, because we know those general plan updates are very important, and that we're planning to continue to have a dialogue with you all to address concerns and make sure that you have options available as you do the important planning that you're doing. So I'm happy to answer any questions here or do any more one-on-one briefings that might be helpful, again, to make sure that we can get the regional plan work we need done, but also make sure that your jurisdictions are supported to the best that we can do that.
Thank you, Dr. Burke. So this is a change, so it's important, of course. Do we have any working group member questions or comments at this time? Yes, go ahead.
So I know one of the cities that are in the queue is San Marcos, and I guess we are using this ABM2 Plus model. So what is the timing of this ABM3? Because I guess our numbers will be based on the current model, right?
Right. So we do use the current version of the model. So right now we do have the ABM2 Plus. We would get that done before we start the regional planning. ABM3 would not be into effect until the regional plan is approved by the board of directors. So that would be around December 2025.
Thank you. Any other working group questions? Okay, seeing none. Clerk, are there any public comments or questions?
Thank you. There are no public comments on this item.
Right, thank you. Our next agenda item is item 4, Regional Resilience Framework, and Natasha Dulik and Susan Friedman, SANDAG's climate team, will handle this presentation.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. It's just going to be me today, Natasha Dulik. I am a regional planner on the climate team here at SANDAG. here to provide you all with an update or an overview of our Regional Resilience Framework project. So at your last meeting, I gave a super brief staff update about what the project was and that we were going to be working through some tools that we were building for local jurisdictions. So today, I just want to walk you through more of this framework and what it's all about. So an agenda for today, I'm just going to be going over the project background and the framework overview, and then going through those planning tools that we've been working on, and then walking through some next steps. So a little bit of background on what the framework is and the purpose, some background on adaptation and resiliency work within SANDAG. In 2021, SANDAG completed the holistic implementation of adaptation and transportation resilience strategies project, more commonly known as HATERS, which sought to, I know, funny name, sought to offer some support to local jurisdictions as they transition from planning to implementing their climate action or climate change mitigation and adaptation work. And this project provided planners with a few tools, which included the prioritization tool to organize implementation strategies and actions, the Equity First Approach resource guide that offered resources to ensure adaptation measures are equitable for all in their communities, and then an economic guidance tool for jurisdictions to consider the economic implications of adaptation strategies. And then prior to the HATERS project, there was a regional adaptation needs assessment that was done in 2018. So now with this new framework, we are looking to kind of reassess and build that baseline for adaptation planning in the region and continue to build off the HATERS project and the tools that were developed. And then additionally, we are also building off the climate or California Adaptation Planning Guide, which you probably are familiar with, but this planning guide breaks down adaptation into 4 phases. The first phase is looking to explore and define adaptation within your community. And then the second phase is to assess vulnerabilities. Third phase is to define adaptation framework and then identify strategies for your community. And that fourth phase is to then implement and monitor those strategies. So our goal with this new framework is to, like I said, establish a foundation for adaptation planning and projects in the region, and recommend holistic planning and best practices so that everyone can get through those 4 phases and go through there and work on their implementation for those strategies. And then one thing different from the HATERS project, which focused specifically on transportation, this new framework is going to really look at how we can adapt and build resilience to all climate hazards across the region, and is a near-term action in our 2021 regional plan. So moving on to the framework and the major components, we started off this project by conducting an existing conditions report and analysis, which helped us better understand where everyone's at in the region, which phase of that planning guide they're in. And through this, we worked with local stakeholders, including a lot of your local staff, to meet with them and do some surveying to kind of get a feel of which phase everyone's in. We found that pretty much everyone was doing really well with phases 1 and 3. And then needed some more support with phases 2 and 4, which were assessing vulnerabilities and then working on those implementation strategies and rolling that out. From there, we have worked on a story map for regional adaptation planning, and it really walks planners through all those 4 phases that are in the California Adaptation Planning Guide, but looks at it on a more regional lens and provides some next steps and options you can take, but still on a higher level. And then additionally, through our existing conditions analysis, we found that there could be some more resilience tools and adaptation tools that can be provided to local planners and stakeholders. So we have developed those tools and been working with a lot of your staff members and some of you to work on these tools that I'll get into on the next slide. And then these are some of the key components that are leading to our final framework. This framework is not looking to be a super long document, but really serve as a guide to help build resilience in the region through adaptation planning with that regional lens that I mentioned, and support all the needs that we identified. The existing conditions report and the tools will be included as an appendices. And then the story map actually lives on our project webpage, which is linked in your staff report if you want to take a look at that. So like I mentioned, we've been working on those tools with local staff and stakeholders. We've been doing that for a few months and working through all those kinks and playing around with those tools. And now we've sent those out as drafts for everyone to play around with. So I'll walk you through the 3 tools that we've come up with. The first one is adaptation pathways. And this is a decision tree tool that looks to provide planners with ways to best use climate change impacts as a guide when strategies should be initiated. So looking for incidents or events such as a number of heat waves or flooding events to be used as triggers to then start on those strategies for implementation. And then we have the adaptation metrics tool, which is a spreadsheet or data tool that can be used to provide assistance to jurisdictions as they are monitoring and tracking their climate adaptation strategies. And this can be done a number of ways and also includes things like tracking existing policies. And it's important to note here that you want to see how strategies are impacting communities and addressing equity as well. And then we have our third tool, which is our pre-project planning checklist. This is a more standardized form, kind of like a climate action planning checklist, if you've used one of those, that looks to provide staff members with a look at, how are we building resilient infrastructure, and kind of makes you stop and think, what climate hazards are affecting projects. So those are our 3 tools. Like I mentioned, we've been working with project members and stakeholders to build out these tools. We actually did a training on these tools last week and have sent out a survey that we're hoping that people can provide some feedback and let us know if there's any issues or things that should be changed with these tools before they get finalized for the framework. So this is the next steps. Look at our timeline here for the project. Like I said, we're finalizing these tools now throughout the fall and gathering that input from you and your staff or your staff members, and then beginning to work on the framework, which we're looking to address all the work and the important input that we received from staff members to guide that framework. And looking to have that ready in late fall, early winter, and we'll definitely be sending that out to all of you for review. Would love to get on the agenda if that permits, but we will also be coordinating with your staff members as well to receive feedback and input as we have done throughout the project. And then looking at the final framework being ready early next year. So that's a summary of our project. Let me know if you have any questions or feel free to reach out to myself or anyone on our project team. And like I said, we did link the project page in our project website in your staff report. So let me know if you have any questions about any specific components to the project. Thank you.
Thank you, Natasha. Do we have any questions from the working group? I have a question, and it's maybe from the perspective of being pretty new to this group. When you said that you've kind of rolled it out and done some testing with a smaller group, how do you select those people? What kind of group is that you've rolled it out to test already?
So we've been working with a number of people, staff members from all the local jurisdictions, and then some that have been working on a bunch of the resilience and adaptation work and kind of rolled those into this project as well. I would say it's a group of around like 40 people. And like I said, we've been testing and playing around with those tools.
Are you in a position to let us know what kind of general feedback you're getting from that testing, like things to focus on as you move forward?
Sure. Yeah, we can definitely share that out with you. We also will be including a lot of this information as we go through the framework too. The existing conditions report walks through like how we developed and found ways to pick these tools and then wanted to go about, trying to roll them out with stakeholders. But yeah, we can share that out in our process, how we developed those, if that would be helpful.
I think of it in terms of making it the most useful possible for the user groups. So I appreciate that we're doing that testing and that you'll still be open to some input when you bring it back to us more formally.
Sure. Yeah.
Correct.
And we did conduct a training, like I said, so we can share that with anyone that would like to see that as well on the tools.
Any other questions or comments? And Tessa, are there any public comments on this item?
There are no public comments on this item.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next item is item number 5, Regional Safety Plan Update. And on this item, our SANDAG Regional Planners Samuel Sanford and Marissa Mangan, sorry if I messed that up, will present the Regional Vision Zero Action Plan and Regional Active Transportation Plan.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for having us here today. My name is Sam Sanford. I'll be co-presenting with Marissa Mangan on this dual approach to 2 different planning efforts. Vision Zero, which is focused on eliminating traffic fatalities and serious injuries on our roadways, and then an update to the Regional Active Transportation Plan, which hasn't been updated in several years, and Marissa will go more details into that one. But there's a lot of overlap between these 2 plans, with both Vision Zero being focused on safety and users of active transportation system being very aware of safety concerns and making many decisions based on safety as they go about their travels. So I'd like to start off with kind of where we're trying to get to. First is we want a transportation system that allows everybody to arrive at their destination safe and sound. That's the ultimate goal. The tools that we have within our toolbox to get there are really projects, policies, and programs. That's kind of our larger toolboxes, these in general. Which projects should move forward, which policies and which programs, all that gets kind of worked out through these 2 planning processes. So getting to the actual Vision Zero Action Plan and the Active Transportation Plan update. That's the point of these 2 documents, is to identify those project programs and policies and to move them forward. So looking at the specifics of the Vision Zero Action Plan, first, this is, if you've been reading the news over the last several years, you've seen it's a growing problem. That during the pandemic, when there were high hopes in the safety industry that fatalities and serious injuries would go down, we actually saw the opposite happen, that there were actually more fatalities on our roadways despite lower traffic. And what we've now learned is because there was lower congestion on the roadways, that people drove faster. And the result of that extra speed and extra energy when there were crashes, it resulted in more fatalities. So after that, then the hope was that as traffic got back to normal and we got back to our routines, that fatalities and serious injuries would drop. And unfortunately, that hasn't been the case either. So looking at 2022, the news, we're hitting 20-year highs on our fatality and serious injury numbers. So despite traffic returning, people are still driving faster than they had in the past. There's also some less use of some of the safety measures that we had become very used to using prior to the pandemic. And it's kind of all come together to have these higher rates. This is somewhat of an American exceptionalism story when we look at peer nations that show that if we control for population, we control for the amount of driving, other countries fare far better than the United States, which is to say it doesn't have to be this way. And that's one of the major tenets of Vision Zero, is that fatal and serious injury crashes are unacceptable costs for using our transportation system, and that we can do better in our region and our state. Statewide, we've seen upticks since about 2011, up to the most recent data we have is in 2020. So we're looking at just shy of 4,000 people a year passing away on our roadways in California. In the county of San Diego, we're looking at a number of just shy of 300 in 2020. And that's been, if we put a trend line on these bar charts, we'd see an uptick over those last 10 years. In July of 2022, the SANDAG Board of Directors adopted a resolution directing staff to seek out funding for a safety action plan, a comprehensive safety action plan, also what we've been calling it a Vision Zero action plan. And we were able to receive funding from U.S. Department of Transportation for what is called a Safe Streets and Roads action plan or safety action plan. In that grant application, we also partnered with the city of Vista and the La Jolla Band of Luiseño Indians to develop 3 plans, really. We're doing a regional plan, which will be high level, that looks at the transportation system as the public does. When I am, biking or rolling with my kids, I'm not thinking, oh, right now I'm in this city, now I'm going to go into a Caltrans facility, and then I'm going to go into county as I cross the intersection. I just travel. And that's how we're going to look at it from the regional perspective, is how the city, blind to who owns, operates, or is responsible for maintenance of those facilities. The City of Vista and La Jolla Band are going to take a much deeper dive and kind of be examples of how these types of plans can operate in a smaller city and then a smaller tribe as well, and come out with some very concrete project recommendations and policy and program recommendations from their area. Caltrans has been a huge partner as well. They're helping not only with their expertise and their know-how, but also with some of the match funding for this grant. What are we going to get? So a big piece of this, is we've kind of heard from many of the other planning efforts, is first we got to start out with an existing conditions report. What is happening out there? What types of crashes are occurring? Where are they occurring and how frequently? So we want to understand, if it's intersections, roadway segments, highway versus local roads, and then what types of crash. The treatment we would need to apply for where there are rear end crashes versus side swipes or broadsides is very different. So we need to know those specifics. Time of day helps, weather. So we're going to pull all that information together in that existing conditions report, and that'll help really inform that next bullet, which is called a high injury network, which will be new for this area. And there's some jurisdictions, like the city of San Diego already has this up and running, but most cities and the region in total doesn't have this. But this is a way of finding out where we should invest our finite resources to best improve safety. I have an example here from our planning neighbor to the north, the Southern California Association of Governments, SCAG. They've done a high injury network for their region, and they found that 65% of all their fatal and serious injuries occurred on only 5.5% of their transportation network. So they're able to take something that's tens of thousands of miles long and really focus it down to this 5.5% and aim those dollars where they're going to have the biggest impact. And that's what we'll do for this region as well. And that'll cover the cities and the jurisdictions in their efforts to seek additional funding when they can go back to the same grant source, the Safe Streets and Roads for All, for safety solutions. So speaking of safety solutions, this will include recommendations for each jurisdiction, not saying, this project has to go here. It is, when you have this type of condition that we've identified, here are a suite of options that a city could use to help address those safety concerns. And then we have identified funding that the cities can go seek if they so choose. Then we'll also have a prioritized list for that, and then plan templates, which will be modeled off the City of Vista example and the La Jolla Tribe example. And now I'll pass on to my partner, Marissa, for Regional Active Transportation Plan.
Thanks, Sam. So at the same time, we're going to be venturing to update our active transportation plan for the region. The last time this was produced and adopted by our board was back in 2010. We've had 3 different regional plans get adopted since then, and most notably our last 2021 regional plan that went through a lot of major updates and changes, including the identification of mobility hub areas, new investments in transit, et cetera. And so we really need to make sure that this active transportation network is updated to holistically account for connections to all of the transit services that we're planning out to 2050. Existing and also new, and reaching all of the mobility hub areas and communities in between and just beyond those locations, so that there's a cohesive network and so that people can get to where they need to go, either within their community on this regional AT network or travel from hub to hub, et cetera. We're treating this network kind of no different than we look at, say, a highway network or a transit network. Someone could use it to take a long trip if they need to for a recreation purpose or for their commute perhaps, but also hop on it for a short while within their community or to run an errand. And just like you may hop on the freeway for a couple of exits, the same thing could be said for using an active transportation network to get where you need to go, especially as more of our devices are becoming electrified and the reach is a lot greater with where you can go. So we want to basically also account for the new ways people are using active transportation to reach their destinations, especially since the rise in personally owned electrified devices like e-bikes, e-trikes, cargo bikes, and all those things are a thing. And older adults are finding it easier to use, especially as they may be weaning down from driving. We want to make sure that folks of all ages and abilities feel comfortable and safe, whether or not they're using the high injury network that we aim to recommend safety solutions for. We want them to feel comfortable and safe getting to all the places they need to go, and also account for needs like devices that may be carrying small goods. I mean, it has a lot of impact with how we can live our everyday lives and shift from driving to using biking or walking, particularly for trips under a few miles. So as a reminder for those that need a refresher or aren't aware, the map on the left shows the pink areas that are our regional mobility hub areas. They are the places where we are assuming the highest rates of existing or growth in population and jobs and places. The highest concentration of places where people like to be or to go to. And so we need to make sure all of those areas are connected, in addition to making sure all of the regional transit services, especially our rapid bus services, are accessible by the active transportation network. And the map on the right shows the high concentrations of shorter trip ends within our region. Those are trips that show a 4 mile or less trip distance that are ending in those communities. And there's a significant amount of overlap with those areas and our regional mobility hub areas. So those are going to be top of mind as we update the regional active transportation network. We want to account for all different types of facilities and trip types. Regional routes that are longer and may require fully separated off-street pathways that could accommodate people biking, rolling, and walking. And then also thinking about medium to shorter kind of trip types and the different facilities that are needed on street to make sure people are fully protected. Families, individuals traveling alone, different devices going different types of speeds, accounting for all of those new trends that we're seeing on the roadway and making sure it's a positive experience. Also for this active transportation plan update, we really do want to think beyond just the work trip. We've found time and time again that work trips are really only accounting for 1/3 of our travel. And so there's a lot of opportunity to think about how we can encourage folks to use an active transportation network for other things. We want to identify, besides just the safety factors that Sam's discussed and we'll look into, what are the major barriers to biking and walking to places? It could be a less enjoyable experience for a variety of reasons, or there may be some concern or just hesitancy to do it. And so we want to, as part of our community engagement, get to the bottom of those things post-pandemic and account for that in the planning of our revised active transportation network. Really make sure we're connecting to a lot of the regional activity centers that may be in or outside of mobility hub areas and making sure all of the places are well connected. Some images. We're going to be updating our set of data sources that we use to update the network, everything from climate, equity, safety, and health data. I already mentioned alignment, close alignment with our updated regional plan assumptions. We want to also account for maybe some already locally adopted connections in the AT plans from your local cities that could be kind of considered part of the regional network for the first time. We're not thinking of this regional network as a SANDAG only owned and implemented kind of network, but it guides us in how we plan and design facilities that we take responsibility for in delivering, but also there's a lot of opportunities for us to continue collaborating with all of the cities to plan, design, and build the network. So we need to kind of think of it as a collaborative approach and not just a SANDAG only initiative. We'll also include updated assumptions behind project costs and phasing and implementation. If new project ideas are added, especially as they are suggested as part of our current regional 2025 regional plan outreach and concurrent AT plan outreach, we want to account for those, and it'll help inform any changes potentially to our early action program. So it's a big update and a refresh that we're doing with this active transportation network, along with providing some supporting policies and evaluation strategies to go along with it. And we're also thinking about a way potentially to suggest an interim active transportation network for the 2025 regional plan, just because this plan update is happening concurrently with the 2025 regional plan, and we don't want to adopt a 2025 regional plan that has a 2010 network assumed in it. So we're working towards maybe some kind of interim stepping stone between the old network and the new one as part of the 2025 regional plan. Sam and I and our teams are going to be coordinating very closely when it comes to community engagement. As far as the public is concerned, we don't want to cause any confusion regarding Vision Zero action planning and active transportation plan update. They're happening at the same time. They share a lot of the same goals, even though they're going to produce two different plans and products, but we want to do the engagement all together at all times. So in addition to coming to working groups and task forces to provide updates like this formally, we're going to launch a digital outreach component that's very similar to what we have online with the 2025 regional plan now, with online surveying, interactive mapping. We're going to have tens and tens and tens of in-person public events, probably on a sub-regional basis to engage people in the community. We're going to be working closely with some of the community-based organizations that we contract with now to conduct even more events. Go hard on social media to really engage folks and get people excited. And we've also formed a technical advisory group that Sam will speak to in just a moment. But I just wanted to share a slide that provides an example of what our current regional plan interactive map platform looks like right now. We're going to mimic that for the Vision Zero and AT plan update processes. It's going to allow people to pinpoint locations where they feel like safety improvements should be added, where new bikeway connections or walkway connections should be added. They can upload their comment, upload photos, like, dislike other people's comments. And it's a really nice way to provide a lot of to hear people and a lot of their concerns.
So the Technical Advisory Group, this TAG, is one of the best practices that was recommended from Federal Highway Administration and other US DOT administrations. But essentially, it's bringing together a multidisciplinary group. So we've invited school districts, kind of universities, trauma centers, first responders, city attorneys, and many other groups, including advocates, to come together and to listen to the ideas that are coming from both the Active Transportation Plan update and the Vision Zero action plan, and give us feedback about how that's landing, pieces that might be missing or could be enhanced even more from their diverse perspectives. So this group will meet quarterly throughout the development of these two plans, with the first meeting of this group coming next week. Another piece that's coming along with these efforts and is really informing these efforts is a safety data dashboard. And this has been under the works for quite a while now, but it's anticipated to be launched this fall. And it'll be a public-facing dashboard that includes over a decade's worth of safety data on our public roadways. And it'll include a map feature where people can look at it, can zoom into their areas of interest and see what the history has been regarding roadway crashes, and then all the details about them, the types of crashes, the frequencies. The idea behind this is that for the public, we're allowing more transparency. This is public data that is published through the CHP. SANDAG has just cleaned it up and made it a little bit more user-friendly. On the jurisdiction side, we're launching this kind of with an economies of scale and a benefit to data consistency, that one regional approach where we've cleaned the data, we've vetted the data, to have all these jurisdictions can then use it for grant applications. Now, many jurisdictions often have their own data system for crash safety. Crossroads would be a common example of that. And that's great for detailed, specific on one site. For if they're doing a larger grant, this might be a great opportunity for them to just pull the data to add to that grant application and move forward with it. So it would help them as well. That's the goal of this effort. A couple highlights about upcoming next steps. We'll be working on that high entry network and in-depth data analysis throughout this fall, getting towards the winter. And then in the spring of next year, we'll already have a draft Regional Active Transportation Network, and we're also looking to have the Regional Vision Zero Action Plan really done by May for alignment with the grant cycle. And that's really the big point of the Vision Zero Action Plan and this tight timeline for completing it, because the adoption of that plan will make all the jurisdictions, the county and the tribes eligible to seek Safe Streets and Roads for All funds for safety projects. And then last but not least, stakeholder outreach ongoing, as Marissa spoke to, all those different touch points occurring throughout this effort between online, in-person, the technical advisory group, and many more efforts. And that concludes our presentation. We're happy to take any comments or questions.
Thank you both. Do we have some questions or comments from the working group? I'll start here. Yes.
Hi, Tara Lieberman with the County of San Diego. Thank you very much for the presentation this afternoon. It was really informative. I did have a question regarding, you had mentioned looking at connectivity beyond mobility hubs, and then also that the investment would align with the RTP investment in transit and mobility hubs. And I'm wondering if you could clarify if there's opportunities for expanding investment beyond those hubs to improve connectivity to those areas or outside of those areas. Thank you.
Yes, certainly. We don't want to imply at all that only the regional mobility hub areas will see active transportation network connectivity. We know and recognize that in between the hub areas, we, for example, have rapid services we want to make sure active transportation improvements connect to. And there are more inland and rural connections, unincorporated areas that we want to account for as well for the connections. But the process is going to be to make sure that any kind of line on the map that's part of the regional network serves kind of a regional connectivity purpose. But we are definitely going to look beyond mobility hub areas.
Thank you.
Do we have some additional questions? Yes.
Some of it is comment and I think the regional high injury network is interesting in playing it here. It'd be good to see where those are in the various communities. But I think there's also some information that I think you talked about at the end of your presentation where it talks about how, maybe what some of those causes might be as it relates to not just collisions, but those fatalities, and coming up with some strategies to address those. I'd like to see that. I'm not sure on I think it was slide 5. Yeah, the data for the fatalities in the county, it ends at 2020, but is there a 2-year lag? Is that what it is?
Yes, unfortunately, safety data has this long lag between when it's collected and then essentially there's a lot of QA/QC that goes on and a little bit of waiting to make sure that they've received all records because the entire state submits, every police department, when an officer responds to an incident, they send that data up to CHP and they sometimes have to manually enter it and QA/QC it. So there's a 2-year wait.
Is there a breakdown of the data that you do have for those years within the county already? Yeah. Okay. I'd like to see that.
Okay,
I think
thank you.
we'd like to see some of that information. And just generally, I don't know if Vision Zero action plan is always necessarily smart as we use the acronym, if it's realistic. I mean, our goal obviously is to have no fatalities, but you can't always accommodate for just or driving habits or someone not obeying the law or following the rules. We all see a lot of kids now on these electric bikes that aren't obeying the rules of the road. I mean, we had one in our neighboring jurisdiction, a death, unfortunately, but I know a lot of jurisdictions here are taking a look at those things and trying to implement items within their ordinances for education, getting that type of thing out. I don't know if that'll be part of this as well.
We'll definitely look at different policies, policy recommendations that cities can evaluate for the best fit for their areas as well. And it is a shared responsibility as far as incorporating not just roadway features, which is typically what we often work with and think about when it comes to safety, but it also comes into working with our first responder, our post-crash care as well. So it's bringing in multiple layers of safety. Should one layer fail, then we have several others to help.
Thank you. Additional questions? Saima.
Thank you. Thank you for the information. It's really interesting and exciting to see this working at the regional level. Just wanted to share that our city has been actively working on an ATP as well. It's in draft form, and we would love to, share this information with SANDAG. Hopefully, there is some. We have worked really hard to come up with good policies and, trying to reduce, of course, fatalities and injuries and creating a safe place for all users of transportation networks. So hopefully, you're open to that information sharing. And kind of related to that, you said that technical advisory group has city attorneys on it, but do you also have transportation planners and engineers from various cities as part of the technical group?
Yeah, we've included city planners as well. So we do have a kind of a diverse perspective, both from the large city perspective and then smaller and mid-sized cities as well.
Thank you. Was there another question over here?
Hi, this is Beverly with MTS. I also found that high injury network really interesting in the safety data dashboard. Considering that there is a 2-year lag in getting that data, is this just going to be like a one-time data set that you'll be providing, or will that be continuing to be updated?
So the safety data dashboard will be updated annually as those data become final. And the current model, it's still under development, but the current dashboard will include what we call provisional, or it's not final data.
Okay.
And so that'll just be flagged as they're subject to change.
Okay.
But that data will be available, but you have to take with a grain of salt that it may change for any analyses. On the high injury network, that will be a network that's developed for this effort, and then we'll have to establish an update cycle for what that would look like. If that's 2-4 years, what would be an appropriate time frame, and that's to be determined through this process.
Okay, so the data dashboard will be updated every year, but the data will be 2 years old. So whatever we're reviewing in 25 would have been for like the 2023 year. And is it only going to be 1 year of data in the dashboard?
No, it has over a decade's worth of data in it.
And so we'll just be adding to it every year. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
But
thank you.
including the 2 years of provisional, just highlighting it as. So for example,
Got
we're
it.
in 2023, 2021, and 2022 are the provisional years, and they'll be highlighted accordingly.
So there'll be data in there, it just won't be final.
Correct.
Right. Okay. Okay, thank you.
Yes, Lillian.
Hi, thank you so much for your presentation. Lillian Doherty with the North County Transit District. I just wanted to encourage that this plan also take into consideration grade separations. We worked very closely with the SANDAG and Caltrans teams on the 78 CMCP, and we thought that that was a very positive effort. Many of our active transportation key regional connectors are located adjacent or close to our transit centers, our railroad corridors. The grade crossings were not included in I think it was the 2021 regional plan, previously referenced as Appendix M in prior versions of the regional plan. So I just want to encourage that maybe we bring those back as part of this plan. Thank you.
Thank you for the comment. And on the data dashboard, we do include FTA and FRA incidents as well. It's a different data set, so they're on separate pages, but that information is there, and we'll include that in the planning efforts. Thanks.
Yes,
provisional data, is it showing an upward trajectory as well in fatalities?
For the nearest year of provisional, it is an upward trend that's 2021. For 2022, it's slightly down, but that could be also because records are still being sent or entered. So that will be, and if we look at a larger data set, such as nationwide, which has less fluctuation year over year, that is showing a uptick still.
okay. On my left, was there, yes, Crystal?
Thank you. Crystal Nahara, City of Encinitas. I had a question of clarification on the active transportation plan. It looks like the main focus is bicycles and various types of bicycles. Are you looking at walking or microtransit or any other opportunities that are also active transportation?
It's going to be bikeway focused, but there's going to be instances where certain facilities may need to incorporate both a bike and a walk element. Can use our project that we have planned and that will go to construction next year on Washington in the uptown community, where there's a bikeway planned along with a walkway. So some of those investments can be paired on a regional network, or we may choose to maybe highlight some major regionally significant intersections that need to account for both bikeway and walkway improvements, but we will include bikeways. When you say microtransit, I'm wondering if you're referring to neighborhood electric vehicles as microtransit as opposed to That's something we've included in the scope to analyze for potential fit, in addition to equestrian access, just because, you know, a lot of our inland rural communities have that. And so kind of TBD, but we are going to look at that because there is a desire to think about where on certain facilities should electrified yet lightweight vehicles share space, but still be separate and protected from people walking at a much slower pace. So we'll be assessing it.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I'll interject and just say there's some amazing comment coming from this group. I really appreciate all the insights. If I could just play off of a couple things, and I have a couple comments. I'll try to keep it brief, but I want to play off of my colleague Joseph Lim, my neighbor from Solana Beach, in regards to a focus that may be relevant as you consider what is needed, and that is that here in our individual communities, we have significant issues that we're trying to resolve. I'm going to call to the fatality that he was just mentioning, a young man, 13, who lost his life at the intersection of El Camino Real and Santa Fe Drive. We are really giving this some significant thought and attempting to be good problem solvers. We feel as though it's our jurisdiction. This is our challenge, but yet El Camino Real is a regional corridor. And so we may be identified as a bit of a hub, but I'm wondering if that's even on the radar. So I guess I don't want to say that in a negative way, but what I do want to say is from the perspective of looking at this study that you're doing, you can look at it from the top down, SANDAG, big region, lots to consider top down, but also look at it from the ground up. Each of us have an important role to play in future success. And we would love being a partner with SANDAG to achieve these really important improvements in our communities. My community may have had this very tragic experience, but from that, other communities, and we can all learn what was it about that and how can we plan in the future to prevent that again. So it's a subtle way of looking at it differently, but from the ground up is another lens to say how, we're frankly a small tax base. There's only so much we can do without the more regional assistance financially. So we would love to be considered very comprehensively as part of the solution and work together. So the second comment I have, and it is somewhat associated with that, is that we're looking at, I do believe, and many of my colleagues do, that speed is an issue. And I think you presented that and affirmed that today in your presentation. When we have the situation of a high-speed corridor, and I'm going to call to El Camino Real again, where we have local bike use, but it could also be a connection regionally. How can we use this situation as an opportunity instead of as an issue? We are looking at it from the perspective of reducing speed. I'm still getting informed about what tools are at our disposal to reduce speed. And that is our challenge, because it's my understanding if it's not warranted by our state calculations, then we lose any state funding for assistance with maintenance in the future. You probably know that better than I do. I'm probably not using the right words, but there are consequences to a local community reducing speeds. So, there's a barrier, and it'd be nice to know how we can navigate together through that to reduce speeds.
Just a quick comment on that one. And there are some exciting new developments in speed reduction abilities of local jurisdictions. And there is a task force that's part of the mobility working group that's really diving into that aspect and what tools are available. And they're kind of progressing and having a phased approach as what's allowed on the roadways. So that group's actively working on that element. And that's something that we'll include in the Vision Zero action plan, showing what tools are available to local jurisdictions for different types of policies, including speed reduction.
Be nice to have some good tools there. Thank you. Any other comments? Tessa, are there any public comments on this item?
Thank you, Chair. There are no public comments.
Thank you very much. So we'll move on to item 6. And so our next meeting is proposed to be held on Thursday, October 19th from 1:30 to 3:30. And I just want to note that that's a change in our standard meeting schedule. So everyone should have been informed about that. So at that meeting, you'll hear about the final deliverables for SANDAG's regional anti-displacement strategy, updates from SANDAG's climate team, and updates on awardees for the HAP Cycle 2 grant program. And just as a reminder, if any working group members have suggestions for future topics, please email them to Sarah or Carrie. So under this item 6, upcoming meetings item, are there any questions or comments? Any public speakers?
No public speakers.
All right. Well, having concluded all those items, item 7 is adjournment. So we are adjourned.